Hello and welcome to FPL Mate, your best mate for fantasy Premier League content for the 2022-23 season. And my name is Dan, and it is a Monday, which means we're going to have a look at some of these early transfer trends and rank them all in a tier list. That's just what we do on Mondays. It's just a Monday tradition on the FPL Mate channel at this point. So guys, if you are still hyped up about FPL right now, I know a few of you guys might be feeling pretty low, some of you guys might be feeling pretty high, but if you wouldn't mind leaving a like on the video, it is massively appreciated. And subscribe, of course, if you're new around here. But let's have a look first of all, guys, at the players of the game week that we're going to be ranking. Okay, then here we go. 20 players, the 20 most popular transfers of the week so far. So I'm only including the most popular transfers. I know you guys have probably got some questions about some other players. If you do, leave them in the comments. I will try and answer as many as I physically can of where I would put them on the tier list. But here are the top 20 anyway. And we're going to rank them all. Must-buys, great transfers, optionals, bad transfers, and avoids, going through with the 20th most popular all the way through to the current most popular transfer of the week. So let's start off with a couple of Chelsea players because they're apparently reasonably popular this week. Obviously, they got a win in Game Week 9, which is pretty nice. Game Week 10 is around the corner, and they're playing against Wolves. However, do we still want to spend 5.4 million on a Thiago Silva? Now, for me, I'm going to just put him straight away in bad transfer. And it's not because I don't think he'll get points. We've got Wolves next, so I do think there will be points for Chelsea defenders in this game. I think a clean sheet is pretty likely. However, 5.4 million does seem a little bit much when you can spend, 4.4 and get a Fofana, for example, who is going to be playing as well for Chelsea. I feel like you can get almost the same from Fofana as Thiago Silva. The only thing that Thiago Silva offers more than Fofana is just that little bit of aerial threat, a little bit of, there's potential for him to score goals from corners, I guess. I'm not discounting Fofana from that either, because he can do the same thing potentially, but Thiago does have a little bit more of that. I know people are going for Thiago Silva because they have seen he's got a couple of assists over the last 2 game weeks. I don't think that's necessarily going to continue at the rate it is currently, so I don't think he's worth spending the extra money. But I'm not going to put him in a void completely because I do still think he'll get points. I just don't think he is the best transfer to go for if you're looking for a Chelsea defender. I'd prefer, to go down to a Fofana, or I'd prefer to upgrade up to a Reece James as well. So we're going to put him there. Aubameyang is kind of risky, although Wolves are, can sometimes keep clean sheets. They also don't concede too many goals. So I feel like I maybe need to put them not like an attacker from Chelsea, not too high either. I think he's a slightly better pick than Thiago Silva, but he's a little bit risky when we're talking about forwards. I'm sure there's some other forwards that we'd perhaps rather go for right now. So again, I think Aubameyang is going to have to go in bad transfer as well. I'm sorry, I am going to try and be a little bit harsher in these videos. I know often I like put everyone in like must buy, great transfer, or optional. Maybe I could, but I'm going to be strict, and I'm going to put these players in bad transfer. Let's put in Fabian Schär next, who plays up against Brentford next, which I don't think is the best fixture in the world, to be fair. I know Brentford have kind of struggled to score goals in the last couple of game weeks, but typically this season, they have actually scored a decent amount, so I wonder if it's worth going for a Fabian Schär. Like, to be fair, he is a good price, so that is a positive in his favour, but I'm not convinced. I think if you're going to go for some Newcastle players, you're probably more likely to go for some of the other players you can see on screen, Pope, Almiron, Trippier, even Callum Wilson, who I've been hyping up a lot recently. I think I prefer those players. So it seems like a bad use of a Newcastle slot. I don't think it's a terrible pick, but I do think I still need to put it in bad transfer. I'm going to put Anthony in optional because he does look good, as in, well, it looks good for FPL players. He looks like he is capable of scoring a goal. We saw the fantastic goal against Man City. We also saw him score a good goal again against Arsenal as well a couple of weeks ago. But this next game against Everton, I don't want you to kind of think that this Everton game is a decent fixture, because I don't think it is. And I still think Manchester United's fixtures aren't amazing right now. So he certainly would not be anywhere near the top of my list. I guess he's an option. Arguably, he's a little bit too expensive, but I've kind of put him low tier optional. I don't think he's a bad transfer, but he's certainly not a good transfer, I don't think. He's kind of like, if you want to go for it, go for it. If you don't, you don't. Connor Cody, I think I put in a similar situation. It's kind of like the defense, I don't mind. I don't mind the Everton defense. In fact, Everton have actually conceded, I believe, the least goals so far this season. I think they're actually the best defense in the league, which, look, I know you didn't expect me to say that. You probably didn't even expect that to be a fact, but Everton have actually been doing really well defensively so far this season. So I feel like Cody is technically optional. What puts me off is the bad fixtures that Everton have at the moment. They've got some tricky fixtures coming up. Manchester United, they've got Spurs coming up as well. It's not quite the time, I don't think, to go for Everton defenders. I think we could get pretty close to going for some Everton defenders, but I'm not quite ready for them personally yet, just because with defenders, we often want to prioritise the fixture over the form. You know, with attackers, we can kind of factor in form a little bit more than we would fixture, but not quite convinced by the fixtures for Everton. Gabriel Jesus, I think, is... Again, I probably have to put him in bad transfer right now. I can understand why people will want to go for him because he's in really good form. And I guess the form over fixture thing does put him up. But the problem is, with Gabriel Jesus, I feel like I have to put him in bad transfer because he's got 2 game weeks left and then it's a blank. We've got Liverpool up next, which is not... I know Liverpool have been conceding goals, but is it an amazing fixture? Probably not. Leeds after that, which is a fairly decent fixture, I suppose. Then after that, we've got a blank. Do we really need to be bringing in players right now who are going to blank in 2 game weeks time when we can go for someone who we know we can just keep in our team? Maybe it's slightly different depending on the player. I think Jesus does have some potential, so I guess he's... I guess he's optional because I do think there is potential for him to score well in the next 2 game weeks to kind of make it worth using 2 transfers on him. But I'm not totally convinced by this one. I'm really not totally convinced. I'm going to have to put him... I think I'm going to put him in bad transfer. I'm sorry. Zaha, I think, is, like, top of the priority list right now. He's, like, maybe must-buy seems a little bit extreme. But in terms of our transfer targets for this game week, I think Zaha is probably target number 1 because he's had a great season so far. Yes, he blanked against Chelsea, but we kind of understood that there was a good chance of that happening. But from here on, Crystal Palace's fixtures look phenomenal. They really do look absolutely amazing. So, in that sense, some good fixtures from a player in good form, playing well, very well so far this season, on penalties as well. The star of the show at Crystal Palace, nailed on in those attacking positions, which is kind of hard to find sometimes at Crystal Palace, to find that nailed on forward, attacker, or whatever. But Zaha does encapsulate all of that, and he comes in at 7.3 million, so he's slightly cheaper than those 8 million-ish players, I guess. So I'm going to put him in must-buy. I know, pretty mad. Firmino is kind of like, I actually like him at the moment. I feel like in his current form, maybe he is actually going to keep his place, but there is always that risk that he's going to get rotated with the likes of, you know, Darwin Nunez, and Diogo Jota's got to come in at some point as well. It's very difficult to say whether Firmino is going to be nailed on. And also we've seen Carvalho as well get some game time in the forward kind of positions for Liverpool. What are we going to do? The fixtures aren't great. We've got Arsenal and then Liverpool. Arsenal again, and then Manchester City next in the next 2 games for Liverpool. Is it a little bit early to go for Firmino? Is Firmino nailed on? I don't know. I'd like to hear from some Liverpool fans in the comments. Do you think Firmino has solidified his place? If you think he does, maybe we can move him up to optional. But I think we're going to have to put him into bad transfer. But at least he doesn't have a blank, which puts him slightly above the likes of Jesus. Lots of players in bad transfer so far, but it is what it is. Let's put Nick Pope in. I think he's a bad transfer. Goalkeepers typically are bad transfers. I know it's not really a wildcard week either, so if not many of you guys are going to be wildcarding, I don't think. And if you're not wildcarding a goalkeeper in, it's kind of like, what's the point in bringing them in? Also, Newcastle's games, I feel like if you were going to go for a Nick Pope, if you were going to go for Newcastle defence, probably should have been a couple of weeks ago. Now I think we're getting towards some slightly trickier fixtures. Like I said, we've got Brentford up next, who, like I say, are capable of scoring goals. I don't know if I'd waste a transfer on a goalkeeper to bring in Nick Pope. I don't think I would. Not to bring him in anyway. And he's getting quite expensive as well. 5.3 million. He's no longer in the mid-price goalkeeper position. He's kind of getting towards premium goalkeeper territory. So I think I have to put him down in a bad transfer. I think I'm going to have to put him down below Fabian Schär. Whatever goalkeeper you've got right now, I'm sure is perfectly fine, unless you're on the Ward-Iverson combo, in which case, why? But anyway, let's put in Tony next, who I still think is a reasonably decent pick. I know he's not scored in the last couple of game weeks, but there's always a decent chance of him getting some returns. I know with Mitrovic potentially out this game week as well, you guys are going to be looking for a forward replacement, and I think Tony is going to have to be up there as one of the more favourable forward replacements if you haven't got him already. So let's put him in great transfer. I think he's a pretty reasonable transfer to go for. We've still got some decent-ish fixtures for Brentford. Newcastle, I think there's potential for Brentford to score against Newcastle, and the fixtures after that do get a little bit better as well. So I think that's actually okay. I think that's a pretty decent transfer to go for. Reece James, I think, is optional. Usually I would put Reece James slightly higher. I'm going to put him high tier optional, but it's just the premium defenders are just not working at all at the moment, are they? It looks like Chelsea might be moving to a 4 at the back formation as well. So James is not going to be in the super attacking positions that he has been in previous seasons. And it just seems like the clean sheets are so few and far between at the moment that it's very difficult to predict when these clean sheets are going to happen. It seems like no one's getting clean sheets, so what's the point in spending too much money on defenders? Like, certainly, we'll talk about Cancelo next, but Trent Alexander-Arnold, you guys are not going to bring him in right now because Liverpool aren't keeping clean sheets, and he's not being attacked. He's not contributing enough in the attacking positions as well, is he? So Reece James, I think, is kind of a similar bracket. The good thing is that Chelsea do have some good fixtures, so I do think that does make him optional. But he's certainly not a great transfer. He's not a must-have anymore, I don't think. I don't think any of these premium defenders are, including Cancelo, who I am going to put in, I think, low-tier optional, maybe even a bad transfer. Like, I feel like I'm being maybe too harsh now, but I'm not a fan of bringing in Cancelo because he's not providing enough in the attacking ways. He's a player that you're probably going to, either have to sell or bench in game week 12. You're going to have to sell him very, very shortly. Southampton is a decent fixture, but I wouldn't be totally surprised if Southampton did actually score against Manchester City. It seems like Man City aren't a formidable defence as they have been before, and Cancelo is just not contributing enough in the ways of attacking either. So overall, and there's a yellow card marking it a little bit as well. So overall, for 2 game weeks, you're going to have to sell him again. But there's potential for clean sheets. There's potential for him to go nuclear and do something and get an assist and get the bonus points. Of course there is. But is it a convincing transfer? With the blank in 2 game weeks time, I don't think it's a convincing transfer. Almiron, I think you have to go with Almiron at your own peril, with your own caution. I think he's a good enabler, so I'm going to put him in optional, because I do think he is a decent enabler, but there are some severe risks attached to Almiron. First of all, you have to remember that his score in game week 9 was a unique circumstance in the fact that Newcastle were 1, playing against one of the worst defences in the league, but 2, playing against one of the worst defences in the league who had just lost a man who were playing with 10 men for the vast majority of the game, by like almost all of the game. So in that sense, it's kind of like, it's a special circumstance where a player was able to get slightly more FPL points, like able to get goals and, whatever else, creative outlets. But Almiron typically has not performed that high level. But he's 5.1 million, so is it worth a punt? Potentially. I also do worry that at a certain point, Newcastle are going to play a front 3 of Isak, Wilson and Saint-Maximin, which is going to mean Almiron's going to drop to the bench. I think that's going to happen at some point. So it's really, really risky. I don't think he's going to get what he got last game week, every game week. I think you guys are all going to agree with that. But he is 5.1 million, which is super, super cheap. So 2 sides of the coin there. He's not the solution to your midfield by any stretch of the imagination, but he could be a decent enabler for you to maybe pick up the occasional return, which is fine. Maybe that's all you want from a 5 million midfielder. If so, fine, go for him. He's an option. Harry Kane, I still like. I think this Brighton team is pretty attacking, isn't it? I know we kind of had the mystery about the Brighton team, but it kind of seems like, they're an attacking team. They're going to leave some holes, and Liverpool were able to exploit that. So why can't Harry Kane? I think Harry Kane is still a good player to have in your FPL team. I mean, he's not quite an Erling Haaland, don't get me wrong, but he's a very decent forward to have right now, and probably still my second favourite premium attacker to go for. You're probably still not going to want to go for a Salah. You're probably not going to want to go for the Man City forwards / midfielders right now because of that blank. We're talking about the blank again. Whereas Harry Kane has a couple of okay fixtures. He's a player who can score in any game. You kind of back him in any game. You back him against the top teams. He scored against Arsenal. He can score against anyone. And we are going to see that, him score against literally anyone in the Premier League, which is great. So, yeah, Kane, I still think he's a very good transfer. I still think he's a very good player to have in your team. You're probably noticing that the attackers seem to be higher up the list, and the defenders are kind of a little bit muddled because so many goals are happening in the Premier League. What defender are we going for? I don't know. Probably none. Haaland is obviously still a must-buy. Even though he blanks, he's just too good. The Southampton game in game week 10 for Man City, you have to captain Haaland. I know a few people didn't captain Haaland last game week. I know those people are going to definitely want to captain Haaland this week. And those of you who got the returns from Haaland in game week 9 as well, you're also going to be very, very keen, very, very convinced that Haaland is going to be your captain. So Yeah, because of the captaincy, even though he does miss that game in a couple of game weeks, you just got to have him. You just got to keep him. Unless you're planning a wild card soon, it doesn't really matter. Just keep him, hold him through that blank. I mean, arguably captain him in the blank as well, because he's just so goated that it's just, it feels like you absolutely must just do the Haaland in every game week. He's a robot. He's a machine. He's a cyborg. He needs drug testing, because this is absolutely ridiculous how well he's performing right now. So despite he is the one player who I would say, despite the fact he has that blank, he's still a must buy. I'm sure you guys are going to agree. Saliba, avoid. Again, I'm going to put Saliba in avoid. We've got a game against Liverpool next. That's not an easy fixture if you're a defender. Fine, you can say, okay, Liverpool haven't been great this season, but what about Liverpool's attack? They are still scoring goals, and we've heard kind of Jurgen Klopp come out publicly and kind of say, look, yeah, we know we're conceding goals, but we're also scoring goals. You know, that's how we're lined up to play. Even if there is some defensive fragilities there, we're still scoring goals. That's what our football is all about. That's what our game's all about. So, Arsenal, as much as I do think Arsenal could get a result against Liverpool, and maybe that's a little bit of bias from me, I don't think Saliba is going to keep a clean sheet in that game. I'm sure you guys are going to agree. I don't think there's any indication to say that this will be the week he scores from a set piece or something, scores a header from a corner. You know, he's going to be up against Van Dijk and Matip, two of the most ginormous blokes in the Premier League. So I don't think Saliba is a good pick. In fact, I think he's not just a bad transfer, a very bad transfer to go for right now. And at 4.9 million for a player who plays against Liverpool next, then Leeds, which is okay, but then has a blank after that, it seems like the most utterly pointless transfer in the world. So if you guys can convince me otherwise, then fair enough, I'm all ears. But for me personally, there is no chance in hell I'm transferring in Saliba this game week. No way. Jose, maybe you will, but I won't. De Bruyne, again, difficult with the blank. He's not quite as essential as a Haaland, is he? Is he optional? He is a good player, and you expect him to do quite well against Southampton. Will he do mega well against Southampton in the same sense as Haaland? Maybe not. You know, we've got some other Man City attackers who are providing arguably just as much as De Bruyne in ways of attacking returns at the moment. So maybe 12.3 million. It's a decent-ish price for him. It is a good price for him. But is it amazing? Especially when you consider the blank and the Liverpool fixture. I mean, I'll say that Liverpool fixture, you know, your Man City players are probably going to score in those fixtures. But would I be desperate to have De Bruyne? Probably not. I'd still do prefer a Kane at the moment. The blank is a big impact on that. So I'm going to put him in optional. But I'm going to put him slightly higher optional than some of these players. I'm not saying he's a bad player. I just don't know if I'd be willing to transfer him in right now. I think I do prefer some of the other premiums right now. So, like, if you have him already, then obviously you're going to keep him. Obviously, you're going to enjoy it and ride the wave. But you guys are probably going to be thinking about removing him in Game Week 12. So, is there any point in transferring him now if you don't have him already? Don't know. It's optional. So, he goes in optional. Trippier is now 5.5 million. So, he's getting towards the premium defenders. I think I genuinely would maybe go for Fabian Schär instead. At least with Trippier, you've got a little bit of attacking possibilities. But look, am I key? Would I be desperate to have Trippier right now? Probably not. No. Newcastle's fixtures are okay. They're fine. Is any Newcastle defender worth paying 5.5 million for? If I'm saying Pope is expensive at 5.3, is Trippier a bad transfer at this point? For me personally, I would just be pretty much throwing all of the premium defenders in the bin and actually downgrading the defense. So to go for 5.5 Trippier seems a little bit expensive. But I do think he is still optional because he does have the potential for attacking returns. And even though Newcastle love to concede late goals, maybe Trippier gets substituted off as he did in Game Week 9 and we still collect those clean sheet points. Let's put him in optional because I do think he is an option, but he is slowly going down and down and down in terms of how much I would be keen to buy him at this point. I already have him, so obviously I'm going to keep him. But would I buy him right now? Probably not. Phil Foden, I actually kind of think this is a great transfer. I honestly do. And I know it's difficult because we've got this blank coming up. The difference is with Man City is because they're so good right now. Foden is seemingly nailed on right now. Man City are scoring so many goals and they can score so many goals against anyone. We back them to score goals against Southampton, obviously. We back them to score goals against Liverpool as well after that. And after that, Foden is a really nice price point where you can switch him to a Luis Diaz, for example. When I don't think that's quite as easy with some other players. Like, You know, maybe you can swap Cancelo to a Trent Alexander-Arnold, but are you going to do that? Do you have that faith in Trent Alexander-Arnold right now? De Bruyne, maybe you can switch him to a Salah, but again, do you have that faith in Salah? That's kind of up to you. Players like Jesus, who also blank soon. The difference is there's no Man City attacker, or forward, should I say, at that price point. So there's no easy transfer out for Jesus. Whereas Foden, I think there's a very clear pathway. Get him now. Hope he does very well for a couple of game weeks. If you can get him in now, like, I would absolutely consider it. I think it's a good transfer. And then hope you get enough points over the next 2 game weeks. And I think it's totally possible for that to happen. I think it's totally feasible. That it's arguably even worth taking Foden out for a -4 come game week 12 and switching him to a Luis Diaz, who has much more favourable fixtures and is in reasonably good form as well. So for that reason, I think there's lots of kind of different cogs going on right now that makes Foden a genuinely decent transfer despite the circumstance of that blank. And it's going to be different for each player. We have to kind of look at each player individually. We look at the pathways of transfers. We look at their capability of scoring goals. We look at their fixtures. We look at their how nailed on they are. I think a lot of things are pointing in a good direction for Foden, despite the blank. So honestly, guys, that's going to be controversial, I know, but I think it's a great transfer. Let me know what you think about that, guys, actually. I'm really curious. Some of these players for this game week have got some really interesting talking points around them. So do let me know what you're thinking about some of these. Have I got it right? Am I slightly off there? What do you think? Would you go for Foden this week? I think I would. Trossard, a very nice attacking Brighton team. Trossard, bringing the best out of him. What a game week he had. I did not see that coming. If you guys say you saw that one coming, then you're liars or very good guessers, or maybe you can see the future. I think he's a decent transfer. I don't think he's quite in the same region as a Foden. He's arguably optional, but I think he's a good transfer despite the difficult fixtures, because there are some tricky-ish fixtures for Brighton, but I still low-key like this one. I think it's got that explosivity, it's got that differentialness, I suppose. It's at that price point where I know a lot of you guys are seeking that 6 to 7 million midfielder. You're struggling to find that player. Could Trossard be that player? Spurs are the next fixture. That's not easy, but it's not exactly hard either. Spurs have not exactly, shown themselves to be defensively resilient in recent game weeks. I think there is potential there. It's not a must-buy, but I think it's a really, really interesting transfer that I would understand if you guys were going for Trossard. I really would understand it. I don't think I'm going to go there personally. I don't think it's quite what I'm looking for. But for you guys, maybe for some of you it's okay. But there are some other transfers I prefer. So yeah, Trossard is up there. But who am I putting above him? I'm putting Foden, I'm putting Tony, I'm putting Kane, I'm putting Zaha, I'm putting Haaland, I'm putting all of these 5 players above them. So if we're looking for for me personally, if we're looking for a transfer in this game week, Haaland is obviously number 1. Aside from that, there are some very good picks to go for instead of Trossard. But again, it's going to really depend on what you guys are kind of looking for this week. Are you looking to replace an injured player? Are you looking to replace a player who has very bad fixtures? Have you completely lost faith in some of your players? And that's going to help define what kind of transfer you make right now. But yeah, we've got a lot of attackers at the top. We've got a lot of defenders at the bottom. That's the way the tier list has gone this week. I hope I've got it mostly right. Thank you for watching the video today, guys. Apologies that it was a little bit long. I just had loads to talk about. It's been a really exciting weekend of football, and we've still got one more game left. The Leicester game versus Nottingham Forest. I'll be tuning into that one, and hopefully I'll see a few of you guys in the strategy stream, which will be live immediately following that Premier League game tonight on Monday evening. Do go check that out if you're watching nearer to the time, I guess. Please do like the video if you enjoyed what you saw today. Please do subscribe if you're new around here, guys, and I hope to see a few of you guys on this stream tonight. But until then, I'll see you later, mates. Bye-bye.